When I was 10 years old, I became fascinated with the idea of diving. The thought of voluntarily leaping from the top board head first was both exhilarating and terrifying. I was scared of heights, but I really wanted to try diving, so I started taking lessons. At first, this was all about technique, and I spent the first couple of weeks learning to dive in correctly from the side of the pool. But things progressed quickly to the springboards, and shortly after, I found myself walking up the steps to the higher boards. 5 meters was the next step. This seemed like a significant step up from the springboards, and it took me weeks before I finally felt confident enough to dive from here. The 7.5 meter board was next, but being on this board gave me a feeling of uneasiness. I guess I was drawn to it because I was genuinely afraid of the height, but it also gave me this amazing rush. It took me weeks before I finally had the courage to launch myself from the 7.5 meter board, but after I'd done so, the only thing left was the 10 meter board. But this was just something else. I remember coming up here just to look around. I never had any intention of diving from here, as it felt like a step too far. But I remember coming up here just to look around, and I would always be holding onto the handrail, and I never went close to the edge. Every time I came to the diving pool, I'd come up here, and each time I'd venture ever so slightly closer to the edge of the board. I didn't realize it, but what I was doing was exposing myself to my fear of heights. And eventually, it got to the point where I could actually stand at the very edge of the board and look down at the water without holding the handrail. This was progress, but I still felt a million miles away from being able to dive from here. But then one day, months after I first started learning to dive, I came up here, and unexpectedly I stood on the edge of the board. I leaned forward and I plummeted head first into the water below. It was the proudest moment of my life. Admittedly, the water had turned a light brown colour, they had to close the pool and drain the water, but the point is that I had done it. And I'm so pleased that I discovered this for myself when I was 10 years old. It was the most important lesson I ever learned in life. Any fear can be conquered by slowly exposing yourself to the thing that you're afraid of. But more importantly than this, the greatest growth in life happens when we put ourselves in uncomfortable positions and force ourselves to take the plunge.